So Sony has closed Firewalk, the makers of Concord, and they also closed Neon Koi, a mobile developer. Really going to mainly focus on Concord and Firewalk here for this video because, if I'm being totally honest, I know almost nothing about the mobile video game market, so I don't even really want to speculate there. But we have the full email here from Herman Hulst, the full internal email here from Herman Hulst, and I will read that with you all. Dear team, today I want to share some important updates from Sony Interactive Entertainment Studio Business Group. We consistently evaluate our games portfolio and status of our projects to ensure we are meeting near and long-term business priorities. As part of our ongoing efforts to strengthen SIE's studio business, we have had to make a difficult decision relating to two of our studios, Neon Koi and Firewalk Studios. Expanding beyond PlayStation devices and crafting engaging online experiences alongside our single-player games are key focal areas for us as we evolve our revenue streams. We need to be strategic, though, in bringing our games to new platforms and recognize when our games fall short of meeting player expectations. While mobile remains a priority growth area for the studio business, we are in the very early stages of our mobile efforts. To achieve success in this area, we need to concentrate on titles that are in line with PlayStation Studios' pedigree and have the potential to reach more players globally. With this refocused approach, Neon Koi will close and its mobile action game will not be moving forward. I want to express my gratitude to everyone at Neon Koi for their hard work and endless passion to innovate. Regarding Firewalk, as announced in early September, certain aspects of Concord were exceptional, but others did not land with enough players, and as a result, we took the game offline. We have spent considerable time these past few months exploring all our options. After much thought, we have determined the best path forward is to permanently sunset the game and close the studio. I want to thank all of Firewalk for their craftsmanship, creative spirit, and dedication. The PvP first-person shooter genre is a competitive space that's continuously evolving, and unfortunately we did not hit our targets with this title. We will take the lessons learned from Concord and continue to advance our live service capabilities to deliver growth in this area. It goes on to say more, I know these are hard decisions, yada, yada, yada. We're committed to excellence here at PlayStation, all the shit you expect. So my first thought with this is I don't think they would have totally closed the studio. And I know there were a lot of disputes, a lot of debate, speculation if Colin Moriarty, if his sources were correct on this game costing $400 million and the whole toxic positivity culture, the work culture at Firewalk. And but the thing that you can debate that until the cows come home, but the thing that I think is interesting was the report where he stated that the game was way underbaked. Less than a year out from its release. Like, it was getting really close to the time that Concord was needing to finalize, needing to really shape up and get that thing out the door, and there was still so much left to do. I think that you can draw a parallel from that to this, where it's like, yeah, a studio, if the game is in that rough of a state, less than a year before it's supposed to release, and you spend hundreds of millions of dollars outsourcing to get this thing across the finish line, and then you see the studio get shuttered, a few months after the game does release, it's hard for me not to look at that report now and go, yeah, there might be some validity to that. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate, of course, because you never want to see studios fail. You never want to see games fail in general. But I also, from a PlayStation single-player fan perspective, I would love to see a Concord go on to have extreme success. That way, and I've talked about this many a times, that way your Insomniacs can be left alone, and your Guerrillas can be left alone, and your Sony Bens can be left alone, and your Naughty Dogs can be left alone, and they can continue doing their single-player shit. And then your Firewalks, they can go on to have the great success with Concord and continue their live service push. And then Marathon, Bungie can get out Marathon and get out a new Destiny and have great success in their live service endeavors. So we can leave the excellent single player studios alone and not force them down this live service path, because we know PlayStation, even in that email, is still committed to pursuing this in some regard. And I think that's where shit starts to get worrying. Sony London was working on a live service game. They got the axe. Firewalk, working on Concord. A few months after it releases, they get the axe. Sony Bend is up next. You know what I mean? A studio that has had the creators of fucking Siphon Filter, Days Gone, the Uncharted game on the Vita, like a studio that has had great games, great releases for decades and decades. One of the lead studios at PlayStation for the PS1 era, you know, with those Siphon Filter games. And so I would hate to see that with Sony Bend. I would hate for that to be Sony Bend's future. And then you look across at FairGames coming up, and I'm sorry, but unless they have some hook, unless FairGames has some hook that is just like, oh my god, I can't believe that there's this one core gameplay mechanic that is unlike anything that we have ever seen before, so innovative, so fresh, so unique, unless they have that, which from the looks of that, or, you know, we can't really judge much because we didn't see any gameplay, but from the looks of what we saw from that first FairGames trailer, it's like, what is this going to be other than like a Payday game with maybe a little bit more style? You know? And I would doubt it's going to even go on to have Payday level success, which Payday, you know, if you could get Payday level success, that would be fucking fantastic, but I don't think it's going to do that. Even Payday 2 couldn't get Payday level success. So you know, you see like WB canceling Batgirl before it releases so that they can get that huge tax break and you know, write it off. And I know, or I shouldn't say I know, I have heard that it's really difficult to release a product and then cancel it and then get that same write-off, you know, similar to if you had already canceled the product before it came out. So, you know, it's one of those situations where if you're looking at what happened with Concord and you're looking ahead to FairGames, you know what I mean? Like, I hate to even insinuate that it would be a wise decision to cancel that thing to just get the write-off, but like, I can't imagine, once again, unless FairGames has something that we just is going to blow our mind, I can't imagine that FairGames is going to fare much better than Concord at all. You know, it remains to be seen, but it's just a very risky genre to create inside of. And also, you know, you're talking about games that are hundreds of millions of dollars. I imagine FairGames is in that hundreds of millions of dollars range as well. And so, and if the rumors, you know, of Concord being $400 million, which I do tend to believe, like, I'm not saying necessarily $400 million, but I don't think Colin Moriarty would report that if he didn't have a really good source on it. Maybe the source is full of shit, who knows? But if, let's just say that was $400 million, that's the biggest flop ever, man. At this point with the studio, because you got to now factor in the price at which they bought the studio, the cost of the game, like all factored in, you're really getting up there. You're really getting up there to close to that $1 billion range when it's all said and done, to, you know, for your losses on this endeavor with Concord. Are you really wanting to do that again? With Haven, with FairGames, are you wanting to suffer that exact same fate? It's, oh man, so much wasted opportunity, so much opportunity cost that you got to think about here. How many third-party, second-party deals could have been worked out to get a Bloodborne 2, a Bloodborne remake, to get, you know, you think about like a Detroit Become Human from the PS4. You think about, which we did get the Until Dawn remake, but games like Until Dawn that were early PS4 generation exclusives and Yeah, and I will say they've did a good job with their second and third party output, but it's like we could have been eating really good with the money that was spent on a Concord, on a Fair Games, if that was put into continuing their single player second and third party relationships, and creating maybe new IP with second party partners that Sony could then own, but maybe pay a little bit more for. That way they could retain the IP after it was created, like they did with Bloodborne, or like they did with an Until Dawn. But and which they didn't do with Rise of the Ronin, and they didn't do with obviously Silent Hill 2, and what was the other one? They did a few this year: Pacific Drive, Rise of the Ronin, Stellar Blade. They don't own that IP either, and so it's like, yeah, some of that money you could up that deal a little bit. Now you own Rise of the Ronin. Now you own Stellar Blade, and it's easy to look back in hindsight with this retrospective lens that we can view everything through right now and find all the right solutions to these problems. But yeah, it's not all that easy in the time where you do need to be in the live service space. You need to be there. But I think what you need to do is create a bunch of 10, 15, $20 million live service games. Small budget live service titles. And when and if they stick, then you expand. I believe it was like $30 million to get Fortnite launched in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. I remember, I think I read a report that said Fortnite was around $30 million to get it launched in 2017. But you don't need to, once the player base finds something to stick with in one of these games. So if you throw 30 $15 million games at the wall, 30 $10 million games at the wall, whatever, and they find a few that really stick, then you double down, triple down on those and invest more money into those games. And if players continue to stick around, you continue investing, making those experiences better, making it to where players don't want to leave those worlds. And the ones that fail, yeah, sure, you have quite a few $10 million failures on your hands, but you can even equate it. I would rather 10 $20 million failures than one $200 million failure. Had a brain fart there for a second, but I would rather have 20 cracks at the bat than one. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. It's easy right now to look back, like I said, and you should have did this and that and this and that. I don't fucking know. The live service market is a crazy, crazy market, and you could even make the argument that Concord as a live service game, the service elements weren't all that compelling. You could make the argument that it wasn't really even a live service game. And then to go, yeah, well, we're going to, how we're going to separate, we're going to give you these great cutscenes and with this excellent motion capture and this excellent animation. And it's like, that's the most Sony way of thinking you could possibly look at. This market, the players that play these games are the most cutscene skipping motherfuckers in the world. When the cutscenes pop up, they're on damn TikTok. They want that shit quick, immediate, fast, boom, boom, boom. And I know that's oversimplified, generalized way of looking at the situation here, but what I'm trying to get at is, I don't think this market is the market that is trying to spend a bunch of time in cutscenes. You know what I mean? And so if that's your differentiating factor, it's like, damn, man. Anyways, I could go on and on about this. Concord is dead. And that's another thing people are talking about. Is it permanently dead? When they took it offline, people are like, I think it's going to come back as free to play. I never once for a millisecond thought that was going to happen. I thought it was obvious. When they took that thing offline, I was like, yeah, that game's done. Like, that game is done. And it's done. Concord is done. Firewalk has been shut down and remains to be seen for the live service future of PlayStation. Not looking good.